metallic clang of the train echoed through the dimly lit cabin. Lena pressed her forehead against the cool window, staring out at the rushing landscape. Fields whizzed by, dotted with small houses and trees, blurring into a green and brown canvas. But inside her chest, a storm brewed. The rolling motion of the train felt like a rhythmic heartbeat, but hers raced at an unsettling pace. She shifted her gaze to the other passengers. Some were lost in their own worlds, others deep in conversations, while some simply stared vacantly ahead. She felt a disconnect, as if she were in a glass box, trapped while life hurtled forward without her. Suddenly, a voice cut through the muffled sounds, sharp and disruptive. "I can't keep doing this," she heard a man say, a man 2 seats ahead. His face was etched with frustration. "Every time we get close, you pull away." That struck a chord within her. She glanced back out the window, but instead of scenery, she saw a reflection of her own fear. Lena had spent years running from her own truth, from the haunting memories that clung to her like shadows. Panic began to rise in her throat, choking her, as the noise of the train grew deafening, mimicking the chaos in her heart. Without thinking, she leapt up, heart pounding like a drum, and made her way to the door. The rush of the wind greeted her as she opened it, the world outside spiraling with life. The trees danced in a frantic ballet, and the air tasted like freedom. With every fiber of her being, she knew she had to escape, not just from the train, but from the chains that bound her to her past. With a swift motion, Lena jumped. Time slowed as she sailed through the air, weightless for a heartbeat. The thundering train faded, replaced by a rush of wind that whipped her hair around her face. She landed hard but rolled, absorbing the shock with instinctual grace. Grass and dirt flew up around her, and for a split second, all she could hear was the quiet aftermath of her leap, just her ragged breaths and the distant chug of the train fading into oblivion. But life had other plans. As she scrambled to her feet, a pair of strong arms caught her, wrapping around her waist. The force almost knocked her off her feet again, and she looked up, her heart racing not with fear but with something much more thrilling: curiosity. The stranger exclaimed, his voice deep and booming, laced with a hint of concern. His green eyes sparkled, filled with an energy that vibrated through her. She took a breath, trying to regain her composure, not quite processing what had just happened. Thanks," she stammered, feeling a flush of embarrassment creep into her cheeks. Her instincts screamed for her to pull away, but his grip was warm and solid, anchoring her in that chaotic moment. He asked, scanning her for any sign of injury, concern etched deep in his brow. Lena shook her head, still overwhelmed. "No, I just—" "Daring move," he said with a slight chuckle, his smile revealing a dimple in his cheek. Lena thought about that. "Well, I'm not most people," she replied, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. The thrill of recklessness surged through her veins like electricity. Maybe it was time to stop running. Maybe it was time to start living. His expression softened, shifting to something more serious as he studied her face. The question hung in the air like a heavy fog. She hesitated. Could she trust him? Yet something in the way he looked at her told her she didn't have to bear her weight alone, if only for a moment. "Just everything," Lena finally admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "Life feels like a cage sometimes." "I get that," he replied, his voice gentle now. "Life isn't always kind, huh?" They stood there for a beat in the sun-drenched quiet of an open field. The train continued to clatter away in the distance, but here, in this moment, life felt still and surprisingly safe. After an awkward silence, Lena took a deep breath, gathering courage she didn't know she had. "Jake," he replied, extending a hand. "So, where to now?" A laugh bubbled up from her lips, freeing some of the tension coiling in her stomach. "Anywhere but where I was," she decided, looking deeper into his eyes. "What about you, Jake?" He chuckled, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Well, I guess you could say I'm doing a bit of running myself." "Nowhere, isn't that a bit?" "True," he shrugged. "But sometimes vague is the best way to be. I'm looking for something, though. Maybe freedom, maybe myself." Their eyes locked, and in that moment a spark ignited. They were both searching for something, both leaping headfirst into the unknown. What they found in each other was unexpected, yet undeniably magnetic. As they wandered through the lush fields, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams yet unfulfilled, the weight Lena had carried for so long began to lift. She learned about his life in the big city, the pressures of work, the monotony of routine. In return, she shared fragments of herself, her fears, her hopes for a brighter tomorrow, the tragedy that had haunted her. Every word exchanged pulled them closer, weaving an intricate tapestry of shared experiences and unexpected familiarity. The world beyond their small bubble faded away, and for the first time in ages, Lena felt truly alive. The afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the landscape in hues of gold and crimson. "You know," Jake said, "sometimes you need to jump to shake things up." She smiled, the warmth spreading through her. Their connection felt like magic, a blend of adventure and possibility. They wandered through the fields, Jake often stealing glances at Lena as if he were trying to memorize her essence. But as dusk began to fall, reality slipped back in like an unwelcome breeze. Thoughts of life waiting for her began to creep in. The weight of the past could not remain hidden beneath the surface forever. She asked, her voice heavy with uncertainty. "Wherever we want," Jake replied with a comforting smile. "The world's big and we're just getting started." And for that moment, forgetting about the train, her past, the impending responsibilities felt like a gift. They found a bench under the open sky, a sacred spot they named their own. That night they sat together, sharing secrets beneath the blanket of stars, laughter punctuating the silence. Lena opened her heart, and instead of fear holding her back, she felt the sweet thrill of vulnerability, something she hadn't experienced in years. As they talked about dreams and aspirations, Lena began to sense possibility blooming in the depths of her soul. Jake was right. Sometimes you had to leap to get to the unknown. But as night wore on, shadows deepened and reality beckoned again. She could almost hear the whispers of her past merging with the sound of the train, beckoning her back to a life that felt like she'd been running from forever. Jake asked, his voice softer now. Tears pricked at her eyes. "What if this is just a dream? That I'll have to go back and face the same old life, that I'll lose this?" Jake's expression grew serious. With his words, something shifted inside her. Lena could feel the chains of her past beginning to break piece by piece. Every minute with Jake felt like they were building something together, not just solace, but hope. As she looked into his eyes, she realized she didn't just want to escape anymore. She wanted to explore, to uncover the mysteries that awaited her. With dawn breaking over the horizon, she turned to Jake, her heart brimming with newfound bravery. I think I need to face my fears." The corners of his mouth turned up into a knowing smile. "Then don't." They stayed there, two souls connected by a daring leap of faith, promising to step into the unknown side by side. The train had become irrelevant. They were embarking on a journey of their own, ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. And as the first light of morning broke through, they hand in hand, ready to own their stories and carve new paths. The lingering echoes of the past faded behind them. The journey had just begun, and for the first time, Lena felt truly alive, ready to leap into a future that held the promise of adventure, love, and everything in between. The shriek of the train whistle sliced through the tension-filled air, a sharp reminder that life was hurtling forward. Inside the dim cabin, Lena's breath quickened. She leaned against the window, her fingers tracing the cold metal, eyes fixed on the blurring landscape outside. Fields of green whipped past, and the sky stretched endlessly overhead. But amidst that beauty, a storm brewed inside her. Her heart raced, fueled by desperation. Each chug of the train felt like a countdown, a rhythm drumming louder in her chest. She was suffocating in this box filled with strangers, the air thick with unspoken words and unshared lives. Lena could feel their dull conversations wash over her like a tidal wave. She'd spent too long trapped in a life she didn't want, weighed down by choices she couldn't unmake. And then there it was, a moment, a crack in the routine. Across the aisle, a couple argued quietly, their words low but heated. The man leaned forward, gripping the edge of his seat. "You're always running away." Lena felt the words resonate deep within her. That's what she had been doing, running. She clenched her fists, struggling against the urge to scream. The walls were closing in. "No more," she whispered to herself, a mantra that kept building until it became a shout in her mind. In a split second, she stood up, her heart pounding like a drum of war. She pushed past the other passengers, their surprised faces blurring into the background as if they were all trapped in her past. The train lurched, and Lena felt a wave of resolve wash over her. She spotted the door, the world crashing and roaring just beyond it, and knew there was no turning back. With a burst of adrenaline, she flung open the door and leapt. Time slowed as she sailed through the air, the landscape stretching out below her like a painted masterpiece. And then, with a jolt, she felt the ground rush up to meet her. She landed hard, rolling to absorb the impact, grass and dirt flying around her like confetti. The train's sound quickly faded into the distance, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Lena gasped for air, a mix of pain and exhilaration thundering through her body. She was free. But her moment of triumph was short-lived. As she scrambled to her feet, disoriented and breathless, she collided with a stranger who had been standing close by, watching. He caught her as if anticipating her fall, his grip firm and warm. "Whoa!" His voice held a blend of surprise and concern as he held her steady. She finally looked up, and in that electric instant, all she could see were his deep blue eyes, bright like the sky before a storm. "I'm fine," she managed, her heart still racing, both from the jump and the unexpected closeness of his body. "Daring move," he said, a smile breaking across his face. Lena felt the corners of her mouth twitch. The sudden confidence surprised her. Maybe she could embrace this crazy moment. Maybe escaping had led her to more than just the freedom she craved. "Name's Ryan," he said, still holding her gaze as he let go of her waist. "Good question," she said, brushing dirt off her jeans. There was something infectious about his energy, a spark that lit up the air around them. They stood there, the chaos of her previous life melting away, replaced by a moment that felt like magic. In her heart, she knew this was her chance, a new beginning, even if things felt uncertain. Ryan offered, motioning toward a patch of grass under a nearby tree. Once seated, the world around them began to shift from noisy trains to birds singing and the sun filtering through the leaves. Lena felt her shoulders relax for the first time in years. With every laugh they shared, she could feel the chains of her past clinking away, landing quietly on the ground. "Tell me about yourself, Lena," he prompted, genuine curiosity glimmering in his eyes. For a moment, she hesitated. But then Ryan's earnest demeanor made it feel safe to share, to peel back the layers of her story. "I was running away from a life that felt too small," she confessed, her words tumbling out like a long-buried secret. "Lost in a toxic job and a relationship that drained me." His expression shifted from curiosity to something deeper understanding. "I get it. Sometimes life traps us in its tiny boxes and breaking free becomes essential." Lena felt a connection forming between them, as if their lives were intertwined for these fleeting moments. "Exactly." They settled into conversation, swapping stories, laughter echoing like music in the open air. She told him about her struggles, the weight of expectations pouring from her lips like rain. He opened up too, sharing the dreams he once had, and how he found himself lost in a world that felt too rigid, too controlled. Time slipped by, and Lena felt like she had been talking to him for a lifetime. Each word he spoke brought a new layer of comfort, and the laughter shared felt like incense wafting into the air, healing the cracks in her spirit. But just as the sun dipped below the horizon, shadow creeping into the sky, the reality of her decision began to sink in. She whispered, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her once again. Ryan paused, a softness overtaking his features. "Life isn't about continuously running, Lena." His words resonated deep within her, making her stomach twist with a mix of fear and excitement. She thought about the life she left behind. The job, the expectations, the looming shadows of the past. Could she really confront it all? "I can't just go back," she said, panic settling in. "We all face our demons at some point," Ryan replied, his voice steady and reassuring. A lump formed in her throat, but also a flicker of hope. Could he really mean that? She asked, a blend of disbelief and eagerness in her voice. Ryan nodded, his eyes locked onto hers, firm and sincere. "Yes, I just jumped off my own train, remember?" she asked, the vulnerability of needing someone else washing over her. In that moment, something shifted inside her, a sensation she had long forgotten. A feeling of being understood, of not being alone in her journey. They made a plan to explore the nearby town, where Lena could step into the world she had left behind as she embraced who she was meant to become. As they walked into town, the lights began to twinkle around them, filling the streets with warmth. Lena felt the tension in her heart ease with every step. Ryan stayed close, his presence grounding yet inspiring. They wandered through the little shops, each more charming than the last. As they explored, Lena couldn't help but notice how different everything felt. She smiled at old memories, but those old chains no longer clamped down on her spirit. They crumbled instead, leaving her feeling lighter. "Look at this," Ryan said, pointing to a small cafe with a colorful awning, and she turned to see locals chatting and laughing. "Let's go in," she suggested, surprised by her own eagerness, and he nodded, following her lead into the inviting space. Inside, the aroma of coffee and baked goods wrapped around them like a hug. They found a table by the window where the two could share stories over rich flavors. With each sip and bite, conversations flowed freely. Lena could feel her walls crumbling, each laugh building a bridge toward something new, something beautiful. They discussed hopes for the future, the kind of lives they wanted to create together or apart. But as they finished their drinks, the bitterness of reality returned. "I'm going to have to return to my old life," she said reluctantly, the weight of it suffocating. "Think about it," Ryan encouraged gently. "What does that mean for you?" His eyes challenged her, driving her to confront the truth she had been bypassing. She stared into her cup, swirling the remnants of coffee, and replayed how good it felt out here, the freedom she tasted. "I don't want to go back," she admitted finally, the truth spilling like sunlight breaking through. "Then let's create something new together," Ryan said, determination visible in every word. What started as a random escape transformed into something unforeseen and beautiful, a shared journey. With Ryan by her side, Lena could feel the weight starting to lift. Under the soft glow of streetlights, they wandered back toward the open fields, the darkness enveloping them like a protective blanket. The uncertainty of their futures loomed ahead, but for now, they embraced the unknown. As they walked, she could feel hope blooming inside her, radiant and unyielding. Maybe the decision wasn't about what she was running from, but what she was stepping into. His eyes sparkled. "We changed each other in ways we didn't expect." And on that night, under a canopy of stars, she felt alive, truly alive for the first time in decades. She knew she'd take the leap of faith each day, embracing life as it came, surrounded by possibility and the warmth of a newfound friend. Sometimes, happiness is hiding in the places you least expect. Sometimes, destiny arrives in the arms of a stranger. And perhaps, just perhaps, every leap leads you to the transformation you never knew you needed. With Ryan by her side, Lena stepped boldly into the future, ready to confront whatever awaited her, ready to embrace everything life had to offer. The train rattled on the tracks as Lena sat, feeling every bump reverberate through her like a relentless pulse. She stared out the window, watching the scenery zip past a blur of green fields and distant mountains, and felt her heart echo the train's rumbling clatter. How did she get here? Trapped in a metal box, heading toward a life she no longer wanted, all while pretending everything was fine. The weight pressed on her chest tightened with each mile. Lena glanced around the cramped cabin. People were lost in their worlds, eyes glued to their screens, headphones blocking out reality. But there she was, a live wire filled with a growing urgency and fear. A voice cut through the suffocating silence, a man's voice, not too far from her. He shouted, frustration thick in the air. Lena turned her head to see a couple at the end of the aisle. His fists clenched, jaw set, while she turned away, tears glistening in her eyes. Lena's heart sank. She recognized that pain. Those words resonated deep within her. The argument mirrored the turmoil she felt in her own life. The train was a metaphor, a conduit for her fear, stuck, helpless, moving toward an uncertain future that felt more like a prison than a journey. Suddenly, the train jolted, and without thinking, Lena stood up. Her breath came quick, fueled by a surge of adrenaline. She took one last glance at the couple, their fight resonating in her mind like a warning. Get off before it's too late, she thought, and then she moved. There was no time for doubt, no time to turn back. She rushed to the door, gripping the handle with trembling hands and flinging it open against the wind. The landscape outside swirled with chaotic beauty, a world she had longed to be part of. With a surge of courage, she jumped. Time slowed as she soared through the air. Wind whipped her hair away from her face, and for that brief, liberating moment she was weightless, caught between freedom and the fear of impending descent. But all too quickly, she hit the ground, a jarring collision with reality. She rolled to soften the impact, grass and dirt flying around her, and finally came to a stop on her back, gasping for breath. The train shrieked in the distance, now an echo fading into nothing. Lena lay there, heart racing, feeling the thrum of the earth beneath her. She was free, truly free, but freedom came with a consequence. Looking up, she saw a figure rushing toward her, blurry at first. With each blinking second, it became clearer, a man, tall and strong, his features filled with concern. He reached her just as she began to sit up. The urgency and warmth in his voice swept through her. Lena's breath hitched as she met his gaze, deep brown eyes, genuine and searching. Her voice wavered, a mix of exhilaration and disbelief coursing through her veins. He asked, kneeling beside her. His question hung in the air, heavy and profound. She hesitated, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she felt, sprawled on the ground, tied to her truth. She replied humorlessly, wiping dirt off her jeans. He laughed, the sound rich and infectious. With his hand still extended to her, he pulled her to her feet, his grip strong yet gentle, grounding her. That moment of contact sent a wave of warmth through her, igniting something long buried within. "Name's Jake," he said, a cocky grin lighting up his face, easing the tension that gripped her heart. "Lena," she replied, her voice steadier now. "What do you say we get out of here?" His playful tone contrasted sharply with the seriousness of her earlier plight, offering a lightness she hadn't known she needed. A flicker of excitement broke through her hesitation. Adventure. Could it really be that simple? She agreed, glancing back at the trail of smoke the train left behind. With another glance at Jake, she felt an unexpected spark of possibility. They began walking, side by side, down a dirt path flanked by wildflowers, vibrant against the green canvas of nature. Each step drew her further from her past and closer to a new reality unfolding before her. Jake filled the silence with stories, weaving tales of his own escapes, quitting his job, leaving behind any semblance of a predictable life. The more he talked, the more Lena found herself laughing, the tension in her chest melting away. She could feel the weight of her decisions lifting, her heart gradually opening up to the unknown. She asked, genuinely curious. Jake paused, looking out at the horizon. "I realized life is too short to be ordinary." His gaze turned serious, and something passed between them, an understanding, an acknowledgement of the roads each had traveled. "Maybe I was just looking for a push," she said softly. He turned to her, the playfulness returning to his eyes. "Then consider me your push." They stumbled upon a small cafe nestled along the path. The smell of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air, enticing Lena, her senses awakening after the long, dreary hours on the train. They stepped inside, greeted by a cozy atmosphere filled with warmth and laughter. Seated by a window, Lena watched as Jake ordered them each a cup and a slice of cake banana bread, her favorite. As he turned back to her, a soft warmth bloomed in her chest. It felt nice to feel cared for, even by someone she'd just met. Over coffee, they talked about everything, their dreams, what freedom meant to them, and the fear that accompanies chasing that freedom. It was a conversation that deepened with every word, forging a connection that felt as reckless as it was real. Lena mused, a contemplative smile on her lips. "Exactly. Sometimes you have to leap to really see the world," he replied, his eyes sparkling. With each sip of coffee, Lena felt something shifting within her. Maybe this spontaneity wasn't just a whim. Maybe she could redefine what her life looked like. She shared snippets of her backstory, the job she had loathed, the relationships that felt heavy, the darkness that had overshadowed her joy. Jake listened intently, offering understanding without judgment. "I get it," he finally said, his voice steady. "We all have baggage, but running from it won't heal you." His words lingered in her mind, truth wrapped in kindness. There it was again, the truth. This was a leap, sure, but she couldn't run forever. The idea of confronting her past ignited a flicker of fear, but next to Jake, she felt the tiniest bit brave. With a newfound resolve, she let hope seep in. After finishing their drinks, they stepped back outside. The soft breeze rustled the leaves and the sun began its descent, pouring golden light across the landscape. Jake asked, looking at her with anticipation. Lena took a deep breath, determination coursing through her veins. I want to take control of my life. Then let's find a place where you can feel that freedom, he said, his eyes sparkling. What do you say we go on an adventure? She couldn't remember the last time she felt so alive, and Jake's enthusiasm was contagious. They set off, venturing into the fields, laughter breaking the silence of the fading day. As they wandered, the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with vibrant reds and oranges. The air buzzed with possibility, each step forward peeling away the layers of fear that clung like shadows. Jake guided her, weaving through trails, discussing everything and nothing at all, ease flooding every interaction. At one point, he looked over at her, his expression softening. Lena replied, startled. The words were unexpected, and for a moment she almost didn't believe them. Exactly, and look at you now. His gaze ignited something deep within her. It was like he saw past her armor, carving a space for vulnerability and strength. Maybe she wasn't the girl bound by her past after all. As darkness fell, they found a hill to sit on, watching the stars emerge, a tapestry of dreams scattered across the night sky. The air grew crisp, and they wrapped their arms around their knees, breathing in the beauty of the universe. Lena asked suddenly, the reality of the leap she'd taken weighing down her voice. Then we pick each other up, he replied, sincerity dripping from every word. With those simple words, a shield melted away from her heart. She looked at him, this stranger who caught her mid-leap, offering solace and camaraderie, and knew she was not alone. In that moment, she felt a warmth blossoming somewhere deep within, an ember of hope igniting like the stars above them. She asked, both nervous and excited, I think tomorrow will come just like today. His confidence lent her courage as she considered the opportunities that lay ahead. Her heart soared at the thought, the promise of new beginnings, the sensation of rewriting her story. Perhaps at last, she could craft a life that felt authentic, a chance to dive into the unknown without looking back. As the night wore on, they shared tales, dreams, and laughter until sleep began to tug at their weary eyes. Eventually, they made their way back down the hill, their shoulders brushing, a comforting reminder that they were no longer strangers in a crowd. She felt something shift between them, an unspoken connection that hung in the air. Back at the cafe, they parted ways with reluctance, yet Lena felt embers of hope igniting within her. Thanks for today, Jake, she said softly, her heart full. Thank you for jumping, he replied, his smile disarming and inviting. As she walked away, Lena felt lighter, almost weightless. She had jumped off that train, landed in the arms of a stranger, and unknowingly opened the door to a new chapter in her life. In the embrace of uncertainty, she found something more than freedom. She discovered connection, hope, and the courage to face whatever lay ahead. And while the path was still unclear, she was ready to walk it, step by step, hand in hand with someone who reminded her what it meant to be truly alive. In a world of chaos, Lena found her story, one leap at a time. The train rattled and swayed, each jolt reverberating through Lena's body like an insistent reminder that she was trapped. Outside the window, the landscape blurred into a tangle of greens and browns, a reminder of the life she was barreling toward but desperately wanted to escape. Inside that metal box, filled with strangers lost in their own worlds, she felt more isolated than ever. She glanced at the other passengers, a mother scolding her child, a couple arguing over something trivial, an old man dozing peacefully. Each one seemed so wrapped up in their own lives, while Lena sat feeling suffocated. The weight of despair pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. As the train rounded a corner, it screeched, a shrill note of metal on metal echoing through the cabin. Lena felt her heart skip, something flickering inside her fear, anxiety, and a bizarre urge to leap out of her own skin. She didn't know when it had begun, this gnawing sense of claustrophobia that had turned her life into a suffocating loop, but she realized in that moment that she couldn't take it anymore. Just then, a man's voice rose up, harsh and loud. You don't get it. The couple arguing within her line of sight was now at a boiling point. The man's face was red, eyes blazing, frustration pouring out of him. The woman merely turned her head away, tears glistening as she looked out the window. she said, sarcasm lacing her words. That phrase struck Lena like a lightning bolt. Jump off. The thought spiraled in her mind. Could she? The familiar ache of despair twisted into something more potent, a spark of reckless bravery she hadn't felt in ages. The train lurched again, and Lena stood up abruptly, a wave of adrenaline guiding her movements. She pushed past the rows of seats, heart racing as the world outside beckoned. Each step felt weighted, but determination held her steady. With trembling hands, she grabbed the handle of the door and pulled it open against the rushing wind. The wild landscape greeted her like an old friend, the sky vast and open, while the train continued to chug along, oblivious to her turmoil. Without giving it another thought, she jumped. Time slowed, and for a fleeting moment she soared. The air enveloped her, carrying away the weight of her worries. But gravity pulled her back to reality, and she landed harshly on the ground, a jolt shooting through her body. Pain surged, but the thrill of freedom coursed through her veins. She had done it. She had escaped. Lena stumbled, her breath coming in quick gulps as she rolled onto her side, shaken but alive. Adrenaline surged through her as she looked back to see the train disappearing in the distance, the sound of its metal clattering gradually fading. The freedom felt intoxicating yet disorienting. Just as she gathered herself, she caught sight of a figure running toward her. A man, strong, with wide shoulders and a look of concern etched on his face. She didn't know if it was the adrenaline or something more, but he felt magnetic, drawing her in even as she tried to collect herself. His voice was warm, cutting through her haze of disbelief. For a moment, words failed her, and all she could do was nod. As he helped her to her feet, their eyes met and a charge sparked between them. "That was a daring move," he said, a hint of admiration in his tone. "I'm not most people," Lena replied, surprising herself with the confident tone of her voice. He grinned, a charming smile that seemed to tease all the troubles of the world into oblivion. "Lena," she said, suddenly aware of how alive she felt in his presence. It was as if jumping off that train had also launched her into a whole new reality. For the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of excitement. She asked, curiosity pulling her closer. His expression shifted, and she could see the shadows lurking just beneath the surface. She nodded, knowing exactly how he felt. "Yeah, I guess we're both running from something," she said, her voice quieter now. "There's nothing wrong with running as long as it leads you somewhere better," he replied, his gaze softening. In that moment, Lena began to see the possibilities unfold around her. Jake offered a sense of adventure she had craved but never acted upon. She asked, excitement bubbling within her. He beamed, his enthusiasm infectious, and that was all she needed to hear. They set off down a meandering path, surrounded by wildflowers and the distant sound of a babbling brook. The air felt lighter than it had moments before. They talked easily, sharing snippets of their lives, hopes, and dreams like pieces of fabric that wove together into a quilt of new beginnings. "I used to have it all planned out," Lena said, examining the weight of those words. "Career, relationship, the whole shebang, but then I realized I wasn't happy." Jake nodded, listening intently. "I think we get caught up in the shoulds of life. Should go to college, should get a job, should settle down. I guess that's why I jumped," she said, her voice almost a whisper. As they walked, it became clearer that this was a shared experience. They were both chasing the thrill of freedom, two souls who had leaped without a safety net. Questions swirled in her mind. What had made him leave? What roads had he traveled? "Tell me about your great escape," she encouraged him, emboldened by the sense of understanding that grew between them. They climbed a small hill, settling on its peak as the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting hues of orange and purple into the sky. "I was working a 9-to-5 job, stuck in the grind," he began, looking out toward the sunset. "I thought it would lead to happiness, but it felt more like a trap. One day I just walked out, packed a bag, and took off. No destination in mind." He paused, catching her eye, and the weight of his vulnerability hung in the air. "I wanted to escape the expectations of everyone else." "That's brave," Lena said, letting admiration fill her voice. Corners of his mouth lifted in a gentle smile. "It's not about confidence, it's about choice. We choose how to respond to life. You chose to jump." In that moment, Lena realized how much she had hidden behind the walls of her own making. Jake's words tore at the fabric she had stitched tightly around her heart. She wanted to peel back the layers, reveal the real Sophia, the woman who had dreams buried beneath struggles. With the sun setting in the distance, the world around them glowed with possibility. "Let's make a promise," Lena said suddenly, the words spilling out like a secret. "No more hiding," he asked, his expression softening. "Why not two leapers facing the unknown?" They laughed, and the sound echoed through the air, mingling with the rustling leaves. As twilight crept in, they wandered back toward the path, their hearts lighter, minds clearer. They decided to find a nearby town, a small place where local legends whispered through the cobblestone streets, weaving tales of adventure. Lena felt the thrill of excitement bubble up as they explored, her spirit dancing in the evening air. They discovered a quaint little cafe filled with locals, laughter spilling from every corner. The aroma of freshly baked goods wrapped around them like a warm embrace. "Let's try some sweets," Jake suggested, leading her inside. As they shared dessert, their conversation deepened, slipping into the realm of dreams and desires. With each bite of pie, Lena felt the walls she had built slowly crumble. "Sometimes I think about traveling to places I've only seen in pictures," she admitted, her eyes lighting up. Jake said eagerly, "Let's explore. Every place holds stories waiting to be uncovered." His enthusiasm was infectious, igniting a fire within her. It felt like every word he spoke invited her to dream bigger, to envision a life beyond her own walls. They spent hours laughing and dreaming until they both realized the cafe was closing. Stepping outside, the stars twinkled like diamonds in the night sky. Jake asked, and she nodded, overwhelmed with the sheer joy of spontaneity. They wandered through the streets, lighthearted and carefree, letting the night carry them. When they reached a small park, they stepped onto the grass, the cool earth grounding beneath them. For a moment, they just stood there, breathing in the cool night air, soaking in the laughter from nearby homes. The moment felt electric, a spark igniting between them as if they both understood the significance of this night. Lena mused, glancing toward him. "Yeah," he replied quietly, "but it's also beautiful when you let it be. Embrace the chaos." Jake smiled, a glimmer of mischief in his eyes. They lingered under the stars, embracing their connection, a bond forged through shared vulnerability. He reached out and their fingers brushed, an electric charge drifting between them. With the night open before them, it felt like anything was possible, as if jumping off that train had launched them into a realm of dreams they never knew existed. As the cool breeze whispered through the trees, Lena felt something deep shift within her. She was no longer the girl suffocated by fear. She was discovering a sense of worth, a newfound belief in herself. With Jake beside her, every uncertainty transformed into an adventure waiting to unfold. She finally said, breaking the silence. "Of course," he replied, his voice steady and inviting. Without hesitation, he said, "Absolutely. Every choice, every leap, every moment we're brave carries us closer to who we really are." In that moment, Lena understood. She had jumped off the train, landed in the arms of a stranger, and stumbled into a kaleidoscope of possibilities. Life was no longer a series of constraints, but a path filled with light and hope. As they stood beneath the looming sky, she realized she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. Together, they would carve their own paths through the vast unknown. The world stretched endlessly, waiting for their adventures to unfold. And for the first time in a long while, Lena felt truly alive, embraced by the exhilaration of freedom, the joy of connection, and the promise of a future yet unwritten. With Jake by her side, she was ready to leap into the life she had always wanted, knowing that each moment was a chance for growth, love, and discovery. The train lurched violently, pulling Lena from her thoughts and rattling her against the window. Outside, the scenery blurred into a kaleidoscope of greens and browns, speeding past like a flickering film reel, racing toward a future she barely recognized. She felt trapped, not just in the confines of the train car, but in a life that had lost all meaning. The rhythmic clacking of the wheels on the tracks became a suffocating beat in her chest. As passengers droned on in dull conversations, she felt as if the walls of the train were closing in, pinning her to her seat. Across the aisle, a young girl laughed with her mother, carefree and unburdened. Lena envied that laughter, its simplicity making her chest twist. And then suddenly, a voice exploded above the hum of the train. A young man shouted at a woman sitting by the windows, furiously wiping away tears. He looked frantic, desperate. Lena felt an intrusive pang of empathy, recognizing the pain in his voice. It mirrored her own internal chaos. The woman cried, her voice breaking. The rawness of the moment struck Lena like a bolt of lightning. The realization hit her life was too short to just remain a spectator. She had been running from her own demons for too long, and they had trapped her in this metal box hurtling toward a reality she dreaded. As the train rounded a bend, she glanced out the window again and made a choice, an impulsive, reckless choice that felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Without thinking, she jumped to her feet. The door at the end of the cabin stood as a threshold to freedom. Heart pounding, she pushed through the crowd, her determination propelling her forward. Someone shouted, but Lena didn't look back. She reached the door, yanked it open against the rush of wind, and without another moment of hesitation, she leapt. The ground rushed up at her. Air filled her lungs, and she braced herself for the impact. She rolled as she landed, grass and dirt flying like confetti around her. As she lay there, staring up at the sky, the distant sound of the train faded into silence, absorbing the remnants of her old life. She gasped for breath, disbelief mixed with the sweet taste of freedom flooding her senses. But as the rush of adrenaline receded, a sense of uncertainty settled in. What had she just done? The world seemed bigger than ever, the burden of her past lifting like fog in the morning light. Just then, she saw a figure rushing toward her, startling her back to reality. A stranger, a man with tousled hair and an open expression. He looked like a character straight out of an adventure movie, his brow furrowed with concern. He called out, reaching her just as she sat up. "Yeah, I think so," she replied, her words shaking. He asked, his voice warm like sunlight. Lena chuckled nervously, still trying to process what had just happened. "I guess." His eyes twinkled, amusement flickering across his features. "Well, I think that's the most honest answer I've heard all day." "Lena," she said, feeling an unexpected spark of connection, an unspoken understanding blossoming between them. Sam extended a hand to help her up, and as she grasped his strong grip, warmth surged through her. He asked, curiosity twinkling in his eyes as she dusted off her jeans. "Sometimes you just get to a point where you can't take it anymore," she said, her voice steadier now. "You did what most people are too afraid to do," he said, nodding in admiration. Lena felt a rush of pride mingle with her uncertainty. "I guess so," she replied, feeling lighter. Sam's grin widened. "Well then, let's make today an adventure." Lena looked around at the open fields, a wild expanse before her. The freedom felt intoxicating, like the cool air filling her lungs for the first time. She suggested, pointing toward a dirt trail that led into the trees. "Lead the way," he said, following her as she stepped onto the trail, her heart racing with possibility, thrilled at the idea of exploring a world beyond the confines of her daily struggles. As they walked, laughter bubbled up between them. Sam had a way of spinning stories that drew Lena in, his enthusiasm contagious. He told her about the tiny town nearby, filled with quirky shops and hidden treasures, where every corner held a new adventure waiting to unfold. And as they talked, Lena began to peel back the layers of her own story, the doubts, the disappointments, the suffocating weight of expectations. The warmth and acceptance in Sam's gaze encouraged her to venture deeper into her truths. "I left my job last month," she shared, a hint of vulnerability creeping into her voice. "I was stuck in a rut, feeling like I was just going through the motions." Sam nodded, his expression attentive. "That's a brave choice." "It scared the hell out of me," Lena admitted, the truth spilling out in a rush. "That's where growth happens," he replied, his voice steady and reassuring. As they reached the edge of the forest, a vast meadow sprawled before them, painted by wildflowers swaying in a gentle breeze. Lena breathed in the sweet aroma, feeling alive in a way she hadn't in years. It was breathtaking. "Wow," she breathed out, momentarily speechless. Sam smiled, his hands resting casually in his pockets. "Beautiful, right? Sometimes nature has a way of reminding us what we're capable of." Lena felt a flutter in her chest. He said, laughter dancing in his voice, "It's all about perspective." As they wandered deeper into the meadow, a sense of liberation filled the air. Lena felt like a weight had lifted, replaced by a rush of possibility. With every step, she embraced her choice to break free, to challenge herself, to redefine her narrative. She asked, turning to Sam, excitement bubbling up like champagne. He replied, and together they ventured toward a small, rustic cafe nestled in the heart of the nearby town. The sun hung low in the sky, casting golden light over cobblestone streets as they approached. People bustled about, laughter punctuating the air. Sam led her inside, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around them like a soft blanket. Lena felt a rush of warmth as they found a cozy corner table, the hustle and bustle around them creating a comforting backdrop. They ordered coffees and pastries, indulging in sweet treats as the sun dipped lower. Sipping her drink, Lena felt alive. Every sip, every laughter, every moment felt monumental. As they shared stories, drawing closer with each revelation, she felt a connection spark between them that transcended the ordinary. Lena asked as she leaned closer, her curiosity piqued. "Fear," Sam replied, considering the question. "But fear can be a compass. It points you to what you really want." She pondered his words, reflecting on her own fears of failure, of disappointing others, of not being enough. But here, sitting across from Sam, sharing dreams over coffee, the burdens felt lighter. "I want to be brave," she said softly, realizing it was more than just a desire, it was a plea. "You are brave," he said earnestly. Lena smiled, warmth radiating from his compliment. She knew that taking that leap meant more than just a sudden exit. It was the beginning of a journey, one she dared to embrace. As the evening wore on, they strolled through the town, taking in the local sights, the shops alive with unique crafts and colorful trinkets. Lena felt the day wrap around her like a warm embrace, the shadows of her old life retreating. She was carving out a new existence, one filled with curiosity and joy. Then they came upon a small park, its lanterns twinkling against the darkening sky. They stopped to sit on a bench, the world around them melting into a peaceful stillness. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like to just?" Lena asked, glancing toward the stars. "Absolutely," he said, a hint of mischief in his eyes, "but I'd much rather explore the world than fade away." Lena smiled, her heart swelling as she realized how comfortable she felt with him. "All of them," he replied. "But if I had to choose, I'd say the mountains. There's something so powerful about nature, don't you think?" "I want to do that," she said, a rush of determination igniting within her. Sam's gaze was steady, reflecting the sincerity in her voice. "Then let's do it." And in that moment, Lena felt like anything was possible. They were two kindred spirits, ready to embrace the unknown. The worries that had once consumed her began to dissipate. She could feel dreams blossoming, roots taking hold in the garden of her heart. As the stars twinkled above, she leaned against him, feeling the warmth of his presence settle beside her. They were strangers brought together by chance, and yet something about this encounter felt destined. Hours seemed to dissolve as they shared their dreams under the stars. With every laugh, every heartfelt story, Lena felt a connection grow, a bond woven from shared experiences and illuminated by vulnerability coming to light. Eventually, the night grew quiet, a gentle hush spreading through the park. Lena looked up at the stars and then turned to Sam, who met her gaze with sincerity. "Thank you for today," she said softly. "I didn't do anything," he replied with a shrug, but his eyes held a glimmer of something deeper. They lingered there for a moment, the air thick with unspoken promises. Lena felt a rush of warmth, the kind that spoke of more than just friendship, more than just two people sharing a moment. As they prepared to leave, the weight of the world started to settle back into her heart. Reality would resume in the morning, but for now, she had tasted freedom and connection, and she wanted more. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely," Sam said, and that simple word echoed in her heart like the sweetest melody. With the promise of a new beginning flickering in the night sky, she was ready. She had taken a leap, landed in the arms of a stranger, and felt alive in ways she hadn't imagined possible. The journey had just begun, and as they walked back together, Lena knew one thing for certain. She would never be the girl who sat in silence in a train car again. She was now a woman willing to leap, willing to explore, and ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited her. And as the night enveloped them, the stars overhead sparkled with possibility, a celestial canopy promising that every dream could take flight. The train screeched to a sudden halt, and the metallic clank echoing through the cabin sent a shiver down Lena's spine. She jolted upright, her heart racing as the sound sliced through her fog of despair. The air felt thick, almost suffocating as she glanced around the dimly lit compartment filled with strangers, each lost in their own lives. Outside the window, the landscape whizzed past, a blur of greens and browns, but inside she felt trapped, stagnant, and utterly alone. She watched as people shifted in their seats, some glancing out the window, others engrossed in their phones. Yet here she was, an invisible weight crushing her chest, a gnawing sense of suffocation wrapped around her soul. The once comforting hum of the train now felt like a prison. Each mile traveled a reminder of the life she was desperately trying to escape. She whispered to herself, scanning the faces around her as panic bubbled to the surface. The clean-cut businessman engrossed in his laptop, the teenage girl laughing at her phone, and the elderly couple sharing quiet whispers. None of them could sense the whirlwind of emotion raging inside her. But across the aisle, a couple sat arguing, their voices sharp and heated. "I can't keep doing this," the man shouted, his fists clenching. Lena felt the heat rise in her chest as the woman turned away, tears spilling from her eyes. There it was again, the unmistakable echo of her own struggle. The familiar ache of resignation sank her deeper. This was her reality. She was watching life unfold around her while she remained stuck, like a fly in amber, yearning for a way out. And then, just like that, amidst the chaos of the moment, a spark ignited within her. The very idea sent her adrenaline surging, heart pounding against her ribcage. Whoosh, the train hurtled along, a relentless force pushing her to confront her own fears. Lena took a deep breath and stood up, each step toward the door a clash of uncertainty and resolve. The voices faded into the background, her focus narrowing. Someone asked as she pushed through the crowd, but she didn't look back. The door loomed ahead, an exit to everything she had hoped for but felt she had never truly pursued. With one swift motion, she flung the door open, and the wind rushed at her, wild and fierce, urging her to take that leap. It was now or never, and with one final, breathless moment of courage, she jumped. Time slowed as she soared through the air, weightless and free. The world spun, a dizzying mix of colors and sensations, grass, sky, earth, all merging into a singular feeling of liberation. But then reality hit. She landed hard, rolling into grass and dirt, fear flashing through her as pain jolted her legs. Lena lay there for a moment, the weight of her own body grounding her as the train disappeared into the distance. Gasping for breath, she stared up at the vast sky, the clouds drifting above like a comforting blanket. She was free. For the first time in ages, she felt as if she could breathe again. But adrenaline soon transformed into uncertainty as she scrambled to her feet, brushing dirt off her clothes. The thrill of her escape faded, replaced by confusion and a tinge of regret. What now? She glanced around, still disoriented by the suddenness of her leap. Just then, someone appeared, a figure darting toward her. A man tall and lean, with a concerned expression etched across his features. He called out, his voice filled with urgency. Lena froze as he reached her, a storm of emotions swirling inside her. I think so," she managed, meeting his gaze, which was warm and genuine. He reached out, helping her stabilize. That was a bold move. There was admiration in his voice, and despite the vulnerability coursing through her, she found herself smiling. "I didn't know what else to do," she said, her voice steadier now. "Name's Jake," he introduced himself, his smile widening as he took her in. Lena felt a flutter of excitement rise in her chest. Somehow she had landed in the arms of a stranger who was not only kind but also exuding an adventurous spirit she craved. "Yeah, I guess so," she replied, drawing strength from the thrill of the moment. He asked, his curiosity piqued. Lena paused, contemplating. Where was she headed? It felt like everything around her expanded suddenly, the possibilities stretching wide open. "Anywhere but there," she said, gesturing back toward the now distant train, feeling bold and reckless in the light of this new opportunity. "Then let's explore," Jake said casually, his excitement infectious. She found herself grinning, fueled by the spontaneity of it all. "Okay." As they ventured down the path leading away from the tracks, the landscape shifted dramatically. The trees whispered in the breeze and wildflowers danced at their feet. The air felt lighter, less polluted by the stale confines of the train's cabin. Every step she took beside Jake felt like shedding layers of her past. He asked, glancing sideways at her, a playful smile on his lips. Lena hesitated, the memories flooding back. Her job, her crumbling relationships, the weight of unmet expectations. But something about Jake's openness prompted her to share. "I left my job just a few weeks ago," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "I felt trapped." He inquired, nudging her as they walked down the winding path. "Honestly, I don't know yet," she replied, feeling the vulnerability wash over her. "But I knew I had to try something different, this." Jake chuckled lightly, making her laugh too. "A solid start." "True," she said, her voice laced with disbelief. "Maybe they're the ones missing out," he countered, his gaze steady and filled with understanding. As they walked, the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. Lena felt lighter with each passing moment, the weight of her past slipping away. She hadn't realized how much she longed for connection until that very moment. Jake's presence was like a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone. They wandered deeper into the woods, the sound of birds chirping filling the air. After a while, they stumbled upon a small clearing where sunlight streamed down, illuminating the space like a golden spotlight. They stopped, taking in the beauty of it all. "That's beautiful," Lena said, glancing at Jake. "Looks like a scene from a movie," he replied. Lena nodded, feeling the urge to soak it all in. They sat on a fallen log, and for a while the two of them just basked in the light. She turned to him, intrigued. "When you escape the routine, when you feel the wind rush past you, or when you meet someone unexpectedly, it fills your soul." Lena felt a stirring in her heart, his words resonating deeply. It felt like a revelation. "You're right. I spent so much time just going through the motions." A pause hung between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. "Tell me more about your escape," he encouraged gently. She took a breath, finally opening up about the pressures she had faced, the job that suffocated her, the relationship that drained her, the dreams she had shelved. Each word helped lift the heaviness that had clung to her for so long, each confession a thread stitching her heart back together. Jake listened intently, and as she spoke, she felt a sense of relief washing over her. The connection they shared was genuine, an unbreakable bond forged through honesty. "I never thought I could take such a leap." "Until today," she admitted, almost in disbelief. "And I'm glad you did," he replied, his gaze unwavering. Just then, a playful breeze swept through the clearing, tangling her hair and wrapping around them like a warm cocoon. It felt like magic, a chance to discover who she was, not just who she had been. Eventually, they got back to their feet, invigorated and ready to continue their adventures. As they meandered through the woods, Lena felt a newfound clarity, free from the chains that once held her down. She was no longer running away, she was running towards something magnificent. Hungry, they decided to find a nearby cafe Jake had mentioned. "It's a little quirky but has the best pastries in town," he said, eyes sparkling with excitement. As they reached the rustic little building, the delight of freshly baked bread filled the air, inviting them inside. The cafe buzzed with warmth, laughter drifting through the cozy setting. After they ordered coffee and pastries, they settled into a sunlit corner, enveloped by the charm of old books stacked on shelves and local art adorning the walls. Sipping her cappuccino, Lena felt a rush of joy swell within her. This moment was hers, fully and completely. She smiled at Jake, who was animatedly talking about the town's eccentric history. "Here's to new beginnings," he toasted, raising his cup. She echoed, clinking her mug against his. As they shared stories, laughter erupted between them like fireworks, a mix of connection and promise. She felt seen, understood, and empowered. The conversation flowed deep, touching on dreams, fears, and everything in between. Lena realized how much she had hidden behind her own walls. She longed for connection, but had kept everyone at arm's length until now. "I want to travel," she confessed, the words tumbling out. "Then let's do it together," Jake offered without hesitation. Their eyes met, and the weight of that promise hung heavy in the air. It felt exciting and liberating, the thrill of possibility electrifying their connection. Later, as they ventured out into the town, Lena felt alive, every moment overflowing with potential. She explored shops filled with handcrafted trinkets and paintings while Jake playfully nudged her, urging her to embrace the little joys of life. It was infectious. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant hues, they found themselves at a park, laughter and music weaving through the air. Children played, couples strolled, and life unfolded all around them, bursting with color and warmth. Lena asked, her heart racing with excitement. "I can," Jake said, his eyes twinkling. As they settled on a bench, the world around them softened into a gentle hush. The kaleidoscope of colors above them drew Lena in, wrapping her in a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in ages. "Thank you for today," she said, turning to Jake, sincerity lacing her words. "Glad I could share it with you," he replied, gaze steady and warm. The connection between them deepened, and as the stars began to emerge one by one, Lena realized she was no longer the girl weighed down by expectations. She was now a woman ready to take on the world. She asked, her voice quiet yet filled with hope. "Of course," he said, grinning. As the night enveloped them, the stars gave birth to a universe full of dreams yet to be written. In that peaceful moment, Lena embraced the truth. She had jumped off the train, and in doing so, she landed in the arms of a stranger who had become something so much more. The train screeched to a sudden halt, and the metallic clank echoing through the cabin sent a shiver down Lena's spine. She jolted upright, her heart racing as the sound sliced through her fog of despair. The air felt thick, almost suffocating as she glanced around the dimly lit compartment filled with strangers, each lost in their own lives. Outside the window, the landscape whizzed past, a blur of greens and browns, but inside she felt trapped, stagnant, and utterly alone. She watched as people shifted in their seats, some glancing out the window, others engrossed in their phones. Yet here she was, an invisible weight crushing her chest, a gnawing sense of suffocation wrapped around her soul. The once comforting hum of the train now felt like a prison. Each mile traveled a reminder of the life she was desperately trying to escape. She whispered to herself, scanning the faces around her as panic bubbled to the surface. The clean-cut businessman engrossed in his laptop, the teenage girl laughing at her phone, and the elderly couple sharing quiet whispers. None of them could sense the whirlwind of emotion raging inside her. But across the aisle, a couple sat arguing, their voices sharp and heated. "I can't keep doing this," the man shouted, his fists clenching. Lena felt the heat rise in her chest as the woman turned away, tears spilling from her eyes. There it was again, the unmistakable echo of her own struggle. The familiar ache of resignation sank her deeper. This was her reality. She was watching life unfold around her while she remained stuck, like a fly in amber, yearning for a way out. And then, just like that, amidst the chaos of the moment, a spark ignited within her. The very idea sent her adrenaline surging, heart pounding against her ribcage. Whoosh, the train hurtled along, a relentless force pushing her to confront her own fears. Lena took a deep breath and stood up, each step toward the door a clash of uncertainty and resolve. The voices faded into the background, her focus narrowing. Someone shouted, but Lena didn't look back. The door loomed ahead, an exit to everything she had hoped for but felt she had never truly pursued. With one swift motion, she flung the door open, and the wind rushed at her, wild and fierce, urging her to take that leap. It was now or never. And with one final, breathless moment of courage, she jumped. Time slowed as she soared through the air, weightless and free. The world spun, a dizzying mix of colors and sensations, grass, sky, earth, all merging into a singular feeling of liberation. But then reality hit. She landed hard, rolling into grass and dirt, fear flashing through her as pain jolted her legs. Lena lay there for a moment, the weight of her own body grounding her as the train disappeared into the distance. Gasping for breath, she stared up at the vast sky, the clouds drifting above like a comforting blanket. She was free. For the first time in ages, she felt as though she could breathe again. But adrenaline soon transformed into uncertainty as she scrambled to her feet, brushing dirt off her clothes. The thrill of her escape faded, replaced by confusion and a tinge of regret. What now? She glanced around, still disoriented by the suddenness of her leap. Just then, someone appeared, a figure darting toward her. a man tall and lean with a concerned expression etched across his features. He called out, his voice filled with urgency. Lena froze as he reached her, a storm of emotions swirling inside her. I think so, she managed, meeting his gaze, which was warm and genuine. He reached out, helping her stabilize. That was a bold move. There was admiration in his voice, and despite the vulnerability coursing through her, she found herself smiling. I didn't know what else to do, she said, her voice steadier now. Name's Jake, he introduced himself, his smile widening as he took her in. Lena felt a flutter of excitement rise in her chest. Somehow, she had landed in the arms of a stranger who was not only kind but also exuding an adventurous spirit she craved. Yeah, I guess so, she replied, drawing strength from the thrill of the moment. He asked, his curiosity piqued. Lena paused, contemplating. Where was she headed? It felt like everything around her expanded suddenly, the possibilities stretching wide open. Anywhere but there, she said, gesturing back toward the now distant train, feeling bold and reckless in the light of this new opportunity. Then let's explore, Jake said casually, his excitement infectious. She found herself grinning, fueled by the spontaneity of it all. Okay. As they ventured down the path leading away from the tracks, the landscape shifted dramatically. The trees whispered in the breeze and wildflowers danced at their feet. The air felt lighter, less polluted by the stale confines of the train's cabin. Every step she took beside Jake felt like shedding layers of her past. He asked, glancing sideways at her, a playful smile on his lips. Lena hesitated, the memories flooding back. Her job, her crumbling relationships, the weight of unmet expectations. But something about Jake's openness prompted her to share. I left my job just a few weeks ago, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. I felt trapped. He inquired, nudging her as they walked down the winding path. Honestly, I don't know yet, she replied, feeling the vulnerability wash over her. But I knew I had to try something different, this. Jake chuckled lightly, making her laugh too. A solid start. True, she said, her voice laced with disbelief. Maybe they're the ones missing out, he countered, his gaze steady and filled with understanding. As they walked, the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. Lena felt lighter with each passing moment, the weight of her past slipping away. She hadn't realized how much she longed for connection until that very moment. Jake's presence was like a lifeline, a reminder that she wasn't alone. They wandered deeper into the woods, the sound of birds chirping filling the air. After a while, they stumbled upon a small clearing where sunlight streamed down, illuminating the space like a golden spotlight. They stopped, taking in the beauty of it all. That's beautiful, Lena said, glancing at Jake. Looks like a scene from a movie, he replied. Lena nodded, feeling the urge to soak it all in. They sat on a fallen log, and for a while, the two of them just basked in the light. She turned to him, intrigued. When you escape the routine, when you feel the wind rush past you, or when you meet someone unexpectedly, it fills your soul. Lena felt a stirring in her heart, his words resonating deeply. It felt like a revelation. You're right. I spent so much time just going through the motions. A pause hung between them, heavy with unspoken understanding. Tell me more about your escape, he encouraged gently. She took a breath, finally opening up about the pressures she had faced, the job that suffocated her, the relationship that drained her, the dreams she had shelved. Each word helped lift the heaviness that had clung to her for so long, each confession a thread stitching her heart back together. Jake listened intently, and as she spoke, she felt a sense of relief washing over her. The connection they shared was genuine, an unbreakable bond forged through honesty. I never thought I could take such a leap. Well, today, she admitted, almost in disbelief. And I'm glad you did, he replied, his gaze unwavering. Just then, a playful breeze swept through the clearing, tangling her hair and wrapping around them like a warm cocoon. It felt like magic, a chance to discover who she was, not just who she had been. Eventually, they got back to their feet, invigorated and ready to continue their adventures. As they meandered through the woods, Lena felt a newfound clarity, free from the chains that once held her down. She was no longer running away, she was running towards something magnificent. Hungry, they decided to find a nearby cafe Jake had mentioned. It's a little quirky but has the best pastries in town, he said, eyes sparkling with excitement. As they reached the rustic little building, the delight of freshly baked bread filled the air, inviting them inside. The cafe buzzed with warmth, laughter drifting through the cozy setting. After they ordered coffee and pastries, they settled into a sunlit corner, enveloped by the charm of old books stacked on shelves and local art adorning the walls. Sipping her cappuccino, Lena felt a rush of joy swell within her. This moment was hers, fully and completely. She smiled at Jake, who was animatedly talking about the town's eccentric history. "Here's to new beginnings," he toasted, raising his cup. She echoed, clinking her mug against his. As they shared stories, laughter erupted between them like fireworks, a mix of connection and promise. She felt seen, understood, and empowered. The conversation flowed deep, touching on dreams, fears, and everything in between. Lena realized how much she had hidden behind her own walls. She longed for connection, but had kept everyone at arm's length until now. "I want to travel," she confessed, the words tumbling out. "Then let's do it together," Jake offered without hesitation. Their eyes met, and the weight of that promise hung heavy in the air. It felt exciting and liberating, the thrill of possibility electrifying their connection. Later, as they ventured out into the town, Lena felt alive, every moment overflowing with potential. She explored shops filled with handcrafted trinkets and paintings while Jake playfully nudged her, urging her to embrace the little joys of life. It was infectious. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky with vibrant hues, they found themselves at a park, laughter and music weaving through the air. Children played, couples strolled, and life unfolded all around them, bursting with color and warmth. Lena asked, her heart racing with excitement. "I can," Jake said, his eyes twinkling. As they settled on a bench, the world around them melted into a gentle hush. The kaleidoscope of colors above them drew Lena in, wrapping her in a sense of belonging she hadn't felt in ages. "Thank you for today," she said softly. "I didn't do anything," he replied with a shrug, but his eyes held a glimmer of something deeper. They lingered there for a moment, the air thick with unspoken promises. Lena felt a rush of warmth, the kind that spoke of more than just friendship, more than just two people sharing a moment. As they prepared to leave, the weight of the world started to settle back into her heart. Reality would resume in the morning, but for now, she had tasted freedom and connection, and she wanted more. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Absolutely," Jake said, and that simple word echoed in her heart like the sweetest melody. With the promise of a new beginning flickering in the night sky, she was ready. She had taken a leap, landed in the arms of a stranger, and felt alive in ways she hadn't imagined possible. The journey had just begun, and as they walked back together, Lena knew one thing for certain. She would never be the girl who sat in silence in a train car again. She was now a woman willing to leap, willing to explore, and ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited her. And as the night enveloped them, the stars overhead sparkled with possibility, a celestial canopy promising that every dream could take flight. The train rumbled down the tracks, each jolt and lurch shaking Lena from her thoughts. As she gazed out the window, the landscape blurred by, a swirl of green fields and distant hills. Inside the cramped cabin, the air felt thick and heavy, filled with the muffled sounds of life moving on, while she sat paralyzed, trapped in an existence that no longer felt like hers. She glanced at her fellow passengers. Some were lost in their phones, others engaging in conversations that felt hollow and routine. But for her, the weight of her own life pressed against her like the metal walls around her. The world outside felt like a distant dream, far removed from her reality, which felt more like a cage. Then a sharp voice sliced through the silence, startling her. It was a man, red-faced and agitated, leaning toward a woman who sat with tears in her eyes. Lena's heart raced. The desperation in his voice echoed the internal battle she had faced for so long. For a fleeting moment, she felt a deep connection to that woman, a reflection of herself in the chaos that surrounded them. It was as if the man's anguish unnerved her in a way she couldn't articulate. She could feel the toxic weight of her own life surfacing, the sadness she had buried, rising up like a tide. In that instant, she realized how much longer she could go on pretending that everything was fine. The world was moving on out there, and she was stuck in this stifling metal box, suffocating under the weight of unfulfilled expectations. Suddenly, a new thought took hold. What if she just jumped? It was a reckless idea born of desperation, but it stirred something deep within her. Time slowed as she considered the possibility. Could she really do it? Her heart pounded in her chest, a war drum urging her forward. With a sudden surge of courage, she shot to her feet. Someone asked, but Lena pushed past the murmurs, her focus locked on the door at the end of the cabin. Every step felt monumental, each footfall a declaration of her intent to reclaim her life. She grasped the handle, swung the door open, and felt the rush of wind hit her face like a splash of cold water. In that moment of freedom, she jumped. The air swallowed her whole. For a brief heartbeat, she floated, weightless and exhilarated. But gravity pulled her back to reality with a jarring thud. She landed hard on the gravel, rolling to absorb the impact, a rush of pain shooting through her body. As she lay there, surrounded by the smells of grass and earth, she felt an unexpected rush of clarity. She'd done it. She was free. But as the adrenaline faded, uncertainty crept in. What now? She pushed herself up, head spinning as she looked around. Distant trees and the sound of birds heralded a vast, new world she had once dreamed of. But where to go? The exhilaration of her impulsive leap quickly transformed into confusion. Suddenly, a voice broke through her haze. A figure sprinted toward her, and as he drew closer, Lena's heart skipped a beat. The man, tall with tousled hair and striking blue eyes, knelt beside her, concern etched across his face like he was somehow meant to find her here. I think so, Lena stammered, still catching her breath, trying to make sense of this surreal moment. That was quite a jump, he said, offering her a hand. There was something about his demeanor that felt safe, as if she could trust him even after just meeting. Thanks, she said, taking his hand and feeling a spark of connection, a reassurance she clearly needed. I didn't really plan it, He smiled, his eyes dancing with the thrill of her adventure. The moment lingered and she felt an unfamiliar warmth blooming inside her. Maybe this was what she needed, a lifeline, an ally in the chaos she had fled. Ryan asked, tilting his head curiously. Lena faltered at that question. What was her destination? Anywhere but back, she replied, gesturing toward the horizon, feeling bolder than she had moments before. The rustling trees seemed to beckon her forward, urging her to reclaim her story. Then let's explore, Ryan suggested, his enthusiasm infectious. With that, they set off down the dirt path leading into the woods, the air turning crisp as they ventured deeper. Each step felt liberating, like shedding layers that had bound her for far too long. Ryan asked, glancing at her with those penetrating blue eyes. Lena hesitated. How could she share the complexity of her life in just a few words? Last month, I finally quit my job, she admitted, the words spilling out with surprising ease. It was suffocating. That sounds tough, Ryan said, nodding as if he could feel the weight of her words. I don't know, Lena replied, finally feeling the floodgates open. I just woke up one day and realized I couldn't keep pretending. Ryan stopped walking, looking at Lena with an intensity that made her heart race. You're incredibly brave for recognizing that. She felt her cheeks flush under his gaze. It didn't feel brave at the time, she admitted. It felt desperate. But you did it, Ryan pointed out, breaking into a smile. Lena couldn't help but smile back, the warmth curling in her chest. In a world that often felt bleak and constraining, he was a refreshing spark. As they trekked through the woods, laughter bubbled between them, inseparable from the vibrant energy radiating in the air. The sun filtered through the branches overhead, casting playful patches of light at their feet. I've been meaning to explore this area for a while, Ryan said, glancing up at the bright blue sky. You might be my lucky charm. Lena asked, intrigued. I just left everything behind too, he confessed, a hint of vulnerability slipping through. I was stuck in a dead-end job, caught in a routine that felt suffocating. One day I decided to hit the road. Lena felt a resonance deep within her. Not running away, running towards something, he corrected her, his voice steady. Their conversation shifted seamlessly to shared dreams and aspirations, both diving into the depths of their hopes. As they reached a clearing filled with wildflowers, Lena inhaled deeply. The air felt electric, charged with the possibilities of what lay ahead. She asked, feeling the excitement bubble inside her. I want to see the world, Ryan replied dreamily, his eyes sparkling with ambition. Same, Lena exclaimed, feeling their dreams intertwine. And now we're both in the same place, ready to chase those dreams. We could find an adventure together, he suggested. Lena felt her heart race at the idea. Could that really be possible? Just a few hours ago, she had felt shattered and lost, and now she was contemplating adventures. I'd love that, she said breathlessly. Ryan grinned. Let's hit the road, explore what's out there. But first, how about some coffee? She replied, excitement twinkling in her eyes. As they continued their journey, the sun began dipping lower in the sky, painting the world in soft oranges and pinks. They navigated through winding trails until they found a quaint little cafe, its charm wrapped in rustic wooden beams and flower boxes. The aroma of fresh coffee wrapped around them like a warm blanket as they entered. Inside, laughter and the clinking of cups filled the air, creating a cozy atmosphere that instantly made Lena feel at home. Over coffee and pastries, they shared their stories, laughter spilling from them like the warm sunlight streaming through the window. Lena found herself opening up even more, the walls that had surrounded her for so long crumbling away in the warmth of connection. Ryan asked, serious for a moment. Lena paused, heart fluttering. I want to be free, she said, her voice steady. I want to create, to write, to forge my own path instead of following the one others laid out for me. His eyes lit up as he nodded, a knowing smile creeping onto his face. That's powerful. Lena felt a flutter of hope, realizing how long she had hidden her dreams, trapped by the fear of judgment and failure. At that moment, she knew she was ready to fight for the life she craved. I think I can do this, she murmured, almost to herself. Not think, no, Ryan replied, his tone firm yet encouraging. You've got this, Lena. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden light through the cafe's windows, Lena discovered a connection deeper than she had imagined. In this stranger, she found not only friendship, but someone who believed in her future. They left the cafe, the night wrapping around them like a cloak of possibilities. The town felt alive, laughter echoed, lights twinkled, and energy filled the streets. As they walked, Lena felt herself growing lighter, the burdens of her past slipping further away. Ryan turned to her as they approached a park, illuminated by soft lantern light. Yes, Lena agreed, feeling the world sliding into a gentle hush. They wandered into the park, the sound of rustling leaves and distant laughter blending into a perfect symphony. As they found a bench to sit on, Lena felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over her. Thank you for today, she said softly, glancing at Ryan. Just being real with you, he replied, his gaze steady. The connection between them deepened, and as they sat side by side under a shimmering sky, Lena felt a tide of emotion swirling within her. It was terrifying yet exhilarating. She was no longer the girl who felt trapped in fear. She was becoming someone new, someone brave. The stars sparkled above them and the cool breeze grazed her skin. For the first time in a long time, she felt an overwhelming sense of hope. Ryan smiled, a knowing grin that made her heart flutter. With that simple promise, Lena felt something shift deep within. This was not just an escape, it was a new beginning. She had jumped off the train, landed in the arms of a stranger, and found within herself a fire that had long been dormant. As they lingered under the stars, the world felt full of potential. Lena knew, in the depths of her heart, that she had chosen her path. Each moment was a chance to chase what made her feel alive, and with Ryan beside her, she was more than ready for the journey ahead. Tomorrow would come, but tonight was just the start, a promise of adventures waiting to unfold, laughter echoing in the wind, and hearts ready to embrace what life had to offer. And in that glowing space, Lena felt free, empowered, and alive. The train rattled violently as it sped down the tracks, and Lena felt her stomach churn with every jolt. She pressed her palms against the cool metal of the window, desperately trying to ground herself. Outside, the world blurred into a mishmash of colors, fields of green, distant hills, and a sky heavy with clouds. But inside her, a storm brewed. She was trapped, suffocating in a life defined by expectations that felt increasingly unbearable. As she sat there, the distant chatter of the other passengers washed over her, a dull hum that only heightened her sense of isolation. The man in the seat beside her was engrossed in a book. The woman across the aisle had her headphones on, and the young couple was locked in an argument that seemed mundane yet profound. Each person was a world unto themselves, while Lena felt like a ghost haunting her own life. Then it happened. The train lurched violently and a fleeting voice cut through her thoughts, a sharp shout, a cry for help. "You don't understand." She turned to see a young man grappling with a woman, his face twisted in frustration. Tears poured down her cheeks. In that instant, it felt like a mirror reflecting her own desperation. Lena's heart raced as she absorbed the weight and passion in their argument. She recognized the longing to escape, to be understood, to break free from something she could no longer endure. That's when she felt it, the intense urge to leap, to escape. It washed over her, a flood of adrenaline coursing through her veins. Without second-guessing herself, she stood up, every step toward the door a defiance of the cage she had been living in. Someone called out, but Lena didn't stop. The world outside loomed larger, brighter, more inviting than the suffocating confines of the train that felt like a trap. With trembling hands, she swung the door open, and the wind rushed at her, a wild force daring her to take that leap. Heart pounding, she took a breath and leaped. Time stretched as she soared through the air, the landscape blurring below her. For a split second, she was weightless, caught between liberation and fear. But gravity, as it always does, pulled her back to reality with a jolt as she hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the shock. Lena lay still for a moment, staring at the vast sky above her. She could hear the train fading into the distance, its whistle a final farewell. Freedom enveloped her like a warm blanket, and she gasped for breath, feeling a mix of exhilaration and pain. She was free, truly free for the first time in years, but freedom had its price. As the initial rush faded, doubt began to creep in. What now? The wildness of the leap was thrilling, but reality was just beginning to set in. She pushed herself up, brushes dirt off her jeans, and looked around. The sound of leaves rustling in the wind filled the air, and she could see a trail leading away from the tracks. Suddenly, she heard footsteps approaching. A figure emerged, a man running toward her, his expression filled with concern. He called, stopping just a few steps away. Lena's breath caught in her throat as she took him in. He was tall, with tousled hair and bright blue eyes that seemed to hold more understanding than she could process. In that instant, something about him felt familiar, comfortable. "I think so," she stammered, still trying to collect herself. "Wow, that was some jump," he replied, a slight grin spreading across his face. "Clearly, I'm not most people," Lena said, surprising herself with her own courage. He chuckled, and the tension in her shoulders began to dissipate. "You're not wrong, I'm Ryan." "Definitely the latter," Lena replied, brushing the grass off her clothes. Ryan's eyes softened as if he understood exactly what she meant. "I get that." His words resonated deeply, stirring memories of long-forgotten dreams, moments of courage buried under layers of doubt. She asked, trying to lighten the mood. "No, but I'm open to it. Maybe you can inspire me," he said, a playful glint in his eye. With that, something shifted within her. Lena felt a flicker of hope ignite. She thought as a smile broke across her face. Ryan asked, breaking her trance. "Plan? No," she admitted, the spark of excitement in her voice. "I just want to explore right now." "Then let's chase that feeling," Ryan said, extending his hand. She hesitated briefly, but then grasped his hand, feeling that undeniable connection, that unexplainable warmth. Together, they took the first step onto the path leading away from the train tracks, and Lena couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something important. They walked side by side under the canopy of trees, the sunlight flickering through the leaves, illuminating their path. The scent of earth and wildflowers filled the air, invigorating her senses. Each step felt like a weight lifted, the chains that had bound her to her old life breaking free. "Tell me about yourself," Ryan urged gently, tilting his head as if genuinely interested. Lena felt a surge of emotion threatening to spill over. It felt so foreign to let down her guard, but something about Ryan's easy confidence made her want to share. "I recently quit my job," she said hesitantly, "and I'm just lost, I guess." "Good for you," he replied immediately, his voice full of enthusiasm. "That takes guts," she exclaimed, feeling the heat of confirmation fill her. "Freedom comes with its own challenges, though," he said, eyes shining with understanding. They wandered into a small clearing, wildflowers dancing in the soft breeze. The vibrant colors caught her attention, transporting her back to a childhood spent chasing adventure. "This is incredible," she murmured, breathing in deeply. Ryan stopped beside her, his gaze fixed ahead. "It is." They stood there together, soaking in the serenity of nature, and Lena felt the weight of her past fade like a distant memory. For the first time, she wasn't just a spectator in her own life. She was a participant, embracing the unknown. Ryan broke the silence, glancing down the path that wound deeper into the woods. "Anywhere but back," Lena replied, a grin spreading across her face as excitement bubbled within her. "Then let's keep going," he said, and they continued walking, the camaraderie between them growing stronger with each step. As they ventured further into the woods, they stumbled across a bubbling stream. The sunlight glittered on the water, casting ephemeral fairy lights that danced on the surface. It was mesmerizing. Lena watched as Ryan picked up a stone and tossed it into the water, creating ripples that spread outward. He asked with a playful grin. Without thinking, Lena picked up a smooth stone, her arm rising in a swift motion. She threw it as hard as she could, and for the first time she felt free. The stone skipped across the surface, and she beamed at her success. Not only that, the joy of simple discovery washed over her, flooding her senses with warmth. Ryan cheered, and she felt herself blush. They spent the next hour exploring the area, laughing, sharing stories, and teasing each other about their various skills. But Lena felt her heart growing heavier, floating deeper into the warmth of connection. Just as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Ryan stopped and turned to her. Lena bit her lip, contemplating. "I want to travel, see the world," Ryan exclaimed, excitement dancing in his eyes. Lena laughed, feeling the tiniest flutter of disbelief. "Why not? We both jumped into the unknown today." Something shifted within her. The idea of traveling alongside someone who understood her heart ignited a joy she hadn't felt in ages. "Okay," she said, her voice steady. Just then, a wind rustled through the trees, and Lena felt the chill of the approaching evening. "We should probably think about heading back," she suggested, glancing around. "Yeah," Ryan agreed, but there was a heaviness in his tone. "Right," Lena replied, a tinge of nervousness creeping in. As they walked back toward the path leading out of the woods, a sense of purpose filled the air, but there was also an underlying tension. The sun dipped lower, shadows emerging with each step they took. Ryan asked, casting a sideways glance at her. Lena hesitated. What did she want? "I guess I'm still trying to find that out," she admitted slowly. "Absolutely," he replied, a light in his eyes that she hoped was shared. As they reached the edge of the woods, a flicker of uncertainty stilled both of them. They stood at the threshold, the path ahead unfolding into a world uncertain and unknown. Would this be the moment where they'd define their own beginnings? Then it hit her. There was something more, something both exhilarating and terrifying. "Ryan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what if what we're starting isn't just a trip?" His gaze locked onto hers, filled with intensity. Just then, the chilling sound of a train whistle echoed in the distance, a haunting reminder of the life Lena had just escaped. It pulled her back momentarily, and doubt crept in like a winter chill. Could she really move on? Would this spontaneous leap lead to something meaningful, or would it all crash down around her? Ryan's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. She looked up, feeling the weight of their shared moment. "Whatever happens next, we do it together." "You're not alone in this," he promised, his eyes fierce and full of belief. Lena nodded, determination surging through her. "You're right." Just as they turned to leave the woods behind, a figure emerged from the trees, a silhouette that stood still, watching them. Lena's heart raced. Who could it be? Panic surged as the figure stepped into the last rays of sunlight, revealing a familiar face. It was someone from her past, someone she thought she had left behind forever. The confrontation sent a chill of dread coursing through her. "Lena," the figure called out, voice steady yet uncertain. "There you are." Time seemed to freeze, the evening air thickening around them. Lena stood frozen, caught between her old life and the new one she had just begun to forge. The weight of decisions and the uncertainty of the future loomed over her like dark clouds. The cliffhanger of her new adventure hung delicately in the balance, and Lena knew she was at a crossroads that could change everything. Would she continue down the path of freedom and exploration, or retreat back into the shadows of her past? And as the sun dipped below the horizon, she realized that the next leap wouldn't just be hers to take. It would determine not only her future, but the very essence of who she was becoming.